Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries today. I'm really glad you could join me today, tonight, this evening, middle of the night, whatever. So I'm really just gonna, what else is new, right? I'm gonna try and really throw us into this as quickly as I can. It may end up being a two-parter. If so, I'll try to keep it as short as I can. We're going to cover two different sort of arenas. Essentially, we are covering the end of my career as I knew it to a certain extent. This is the last work that I did, let's say, in nonprofit. After that, I have an NDA that I really, from that end of this position through to my retirement, can't discuss. So there you go. Woo! So I went from my social work, my case management, my clinical work, my all of that into grant writing. I had lots of mentors. I became a very successful grant writer. I had amassed maybe 1.2 million, including government contracts, working through two different agencies. I ended up in a position where at a huge agency, leaning medical, in Los Angeles, not HIV related, which was my wheelhouse, where I actually taught PhD candidates how to write grants. Some reluctantly, but I wasn't like a hierarchical kind of teacher, so I was chill. So I was very successful at that. So I qualified, for lack of a better word, to have a position somewhere which was the greatest nonprofit experience of my career, where I learned the most and what I am the most proud of and what I found the most challenging, head and shoulders in terms of sophistication above any of my clinical work. So I was in this position where I was teaching grant writers, or people how to write grant proposals, which was a science to me by then, obviously. So there was this, I'm not going to even potentially tarnish the reputation, for lack of another better word, of this organization by calling it by name. I don't even want, if there was anything untoward about my channel, I wouldn't want it even associated with them. I don't even know if they're still around. In a way, I hope they aren't because of their charge. Nevertheless, imagine if you have a major corporation, okay, and they have corporate giving programs where they figure out ways to give money to nonprofits. They either say, raise this much and we'll give you that much additionally, or whatever. Well, imagine a global corporation that I work for having a corporate giving program, not a department in a building, but like its own kind of complete entity, turning itself into its own nonprofit and just pouring as much money as they could into it through, this agency was almost like half get the money, half give the money. So we got the money largely at this point from this mega conglomerate corporation, of which there were sort of pet project. This is all for children with HIV, impacted by HIV exclusively. Under 18, nothing. Just children impacted by AIDS and HIV. And this was, like I said, this pet project of this mega corporation. So I was brought in as technically was the client services coordinator. I eventually became what I requested the title of, which is common in giving foundations, program officer. I preferred that to any coordinator, manager, whatever. I just wanted to be program officer because that's what I was always going after. We're program officers as a grant writer. So again, I had amassed over $1 million in funding as a grants writer. That has to do with compliance, that has to do with all kinds of things. You don't just throw a chunk of money and it's over, not by a mile. But the interesting dynamic here was that I had spent all of that time amassing all of that client service experience, which I parlayed into grant writing, knowing exactly what I was talking about, what they wanted to hear and how to get it and keep it. And now I was on the other side giving the money. I wasn't begging for it anymore. I was giving it. And that's kind of why I wanted that job so bad. And I got it for 1 year. And it was, like I said, personally to me, it was the apex of my career, because of the sophistication of the work and how challenging it was. So again, this agency was dedicated to children impacted by HIV globally. We're not just talking like the Oakland. Now my boss, the CEO, she would lean much more into the global affairs, because it's like a little over my head here. I do what I do, and I do it well. So essentially, everything had to come through me. We were only like 5 people in the office, and this woman, I can't go on enough about what I learned from this woman, and even more. The older I get, the more I realized I learned, and what I missed out on by not staying there. We'll get to that anyway later. So I'm brought in as program officer. This are the people that I was going after, making all that money as a grant, writer, as they say, grant writer of proposals, letters of intent, applications, whatever you want to call it. There's 16 different ways of being a grant writer. As there are different tiers of being a grant writer, coordinator, teacher, coach, whatever, consultant. Talk about money. So I tried it. It was not fun. I don't like consulting. So this, again, apex position, because now I'm in a position not only as a program officer to give out millions of dollars, but I also am incumbent upon me to design the evaluation tools. So here I am. This is, like I said, very kind of medical leaning, because I have to not only have a board of directors, I, of course, in tandem with my CEO, of course, but I also have to coordinate a medical advisory board, which means I need to know what I'm talking about. I'm dealing with doctors, trying to entice them onto an advisory board that handles HIV globally and very heavily domestically. I can't just be traipsing in saying, join us. I'm writing their evaluation tools, which means that the money I'm giving away, they are deciding to give away. And how are they deciding to give it away? By scoring it. And who is writing the evaluation tool? That they're just literally clinically, fastidiously, psychosocially pouring through these evaluation tools to determine who gets money and who doesn't get money. So it's on my shoulders double, because it all comes through me. Then I design the tool that decides whether they get it or not. So it just goes through all the doctors and advisors and social workers and bank presidents and not on the medical advisory board. You get it. Lots of board interaction, lots of public relations. But here's the heart of it. These came through me now. So I'm sitting at my desk. It wasn't, glamorous offices or anything. And I got proposals coming to me now. And it was, it was just really bizarre. I hate to take too much of a moment here with this, but it was, in the best of ways, in the most mixed up, kaleidoscopic kind of ways, it was kind of Sophie's choice every time, because the money was so desperately in need at that time that decision making was critical. My decision not to even put you through the process, it was, lives depended on it. Research, money, client services, food, whatever. It all relied on my decision, my evaluation tool, my process. So this is what I became immersed. It was like full immersion. I was just thrown into this. There were days where I would sit having to literally sign 500 letters personally, deal with agencies from all over the place. I'm the one who had to read all hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grant proposals that would come in domestically through us, through all this money that we had to offer once a year. I was literally sitting at a desk inundated with grant proposals, and I had to pour through them And I knew on the other side of the fence, and I don't mean this in any untoward way, but I knew the tricks of the trade.